Hello, and thank you for joining me again at the time between times. Time for stories. So please clear your mind, sit back, and get ready for another tale. Today's tale is one of my favourites, one that goes back in my history quite a way. It was many years ago that I came across this tale scribbled in a small book, known to only a few people in the Swansea Valley. I wrote it down, I turned it into a play, and I performed it along with some of my friends. So it's one that holds a great place in my heart, and I hope you will enjoy it as much as I do. So, here we go. Let's imagine that we are sat at the fireplace at the time between times. The time when it is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. A time that people see ghosts, a time that people see lights in the sky, and a time for stories. So sit back, relax, and know that even though we can hear the howl of wolves, we can hear the growl of bears, we know we are safe here at the time between times. Now sit back and enjoy the tale of John Gethin and the candle. Over 200 years ago, in a village not far from here, a place called Gunlice, which is nice to live but hard to say. Gunlice lies in the Swansea Valley, a place so dark they say the sun only shines there for an hour a day, and then at the height of midsummer. And casting its shadow over the Swansea Valley is the Drim Mountain, a dark, shadowy, steep, foreboding mountain. To reach its top, you are always shrouded in cloaks of mist. People say that spirits walk its slopes. People say that figures are seen under moonlight dancing under the stars. Few have the courage to go there. But 200 years ago, sat in the new inn in Gunlice, there was John Gethin, a broken man. John Gethin had gone to war to fight the French, and there he had been shot in the leg at the Battle of Salamanca, and returned to Gunlice with a limp and his nerves shot to tatters. When he returned, his heart was broken even more when he discovered that his wife, his beloved Sue-Ann, had died of a coughing illness. He came back to his old ruin of a farm, no wife, no life, and nothing to do, and spent his evenings drinking in the new inn. There he would sit, cradling the smallest cup of ale, until it grew so dark that he could not see his hand in front of his face. And there he would wander back to his farm, sleep another lonely night, before returning and wandering the valley once more every day. But 200 years ago, this very night, John Gethin was sat in the new inn, nursing his drink. The dying embers of the fire crackled near him, when with a creak the door opened, and in walked a witch. She had a bent back and crooked hands, and she talked like this. Her name was Nellie Pugh, and she was known the land over as a curser and a witch of highest renown. All the men in the inn turned their backs at Nellie, for they were terrified of her. But she came straight over to John Gethin, sat down on the creaking table next to him, and placed a gold coin on the table in front of him. There are many more where that is to be found. But do you have the courage to come with me, to climb the winding cliff faces until we reach the top of the Drim Mountain? There I know where to get the treasures of the Tylwyth Teg. Do you dare join me, John Gethin? Why should I join you? Said John, terrified. For I can make you richer than any man has ever been from these parts. I can give you treasure to rebuild your shattered life. Your farm will grow once more. Your crops will grow once more. Your clothes will become fine. You will ride the finest of horses. and people will once again be envious of the one called John Gethin. Gethin had nothing to lose. Summoning all his courage, he agreed to go with Nelly, and they made their way out of the new inn, just as the time between times was starting to fall. Far away, you could hear the peal and roll of thunder. The rain started to patter, but John and Nelly donned their cloaks and pulled them tight around them and made their way up the face of the Drim. The lights of the town were left far behind until they moved up and up into the shrouding fog-like blankets until they came to the top of the Drim. There was a small circle of stones. Nelly lit a candle, and its small flame darted back and forth in the wind, but refused to die. She placed it in the centre of the stone circle. "Come into the circle, John. Come into the circle. I will start the spell that will make the treasure appear. The guardians of the treasure will send 3 tasks against us. You must not break the circle, John. Neither of us must set foot out of the circle of stone, for to do so must be certain death. So no matter what happens, do not set foot out of the circle. Do you understand?" "Yes, yes, I do," said John Gethin. Nelly placed the candle in the centre. Both her and John sat by the side, and then she spoke in a language as old as the mountains and as capricious as the sea, and started to cast the spell into the wailing wind that encompassed the top of the Drim. Suddenly, the rain and the wind stopped as Nelly's voice reached a crescendo. "It's happening. Do not leave the circle, John Gethin." Both of them watched. Both of them stopped. Nothing seemed to happen. John's courage started to grow, for he felt that there was no curse. Nothing would come. But then suddenly he could see, rolling its way towards him across the top of the Drim, a small ball made entirely of flame, which grew and grew and grew like a snowball tumbling down a hill. The flames grew stronger and bolder and bigger and badder as they came towards John Gethin, who said, "Nelly, we must leave, we must jump, they will burn us, we will be crushed." "No," said Nelly, "do not leave the circle." The ball grew bigger and bigger and bigger until it would look like it would crush them both. But then John covered his eyes with his hands. As the ball of flame reached the circle, it dissipated into 1,000,000 sparks. John Gethin started to feel better. "Is that the first of the trials?" "It is, but beware, for more will come. More will come," said Nelly. Suddenly silence fell like a shroud, and then far away John Gethin heard a voice starting to sing with a beautiful sound like the birds chirping at daybreak, like the voice of an angel in a choir, singing an old hymn in Welsh. A hymn he knew well, with a voice he knew well. And there, walking towards him, was the beautiful sight of his long-dead wife, Siwan. Her hair was long and black and braided with flowers. Her robes fell to the ground. She sang as she came closer and closer, and John's broken heart fell into 1,000,000 broken pieces as he looked at his wife, as all that he wanted in life stood before him once more. Siwan circled the stones round and round and round, and then stopped and reached out with her hand into the circle. "Join me, John. Join me once more, so we can be together again." John Gethin reached out with his hand, reached out, just about to touch Siwan's, when Nelly's voice echoed in his ear. "No! It's but a task, but a test. Do not go there, John. Do not step out of the circle. At the last moment he pulled his hand back, taking every ounce of his strength to do so. And Siwan turned around and walked away. John fell to his knees and cried and wept and wailed as the rain started to fall once more. Is this it? Is there nothing more? There will be one more test, said Nellie Pugh. Do not step out of the circle. The rain fell, the night grew darker, and John Gethin and Nellie Pugh sat at the top of the circle, holding themselves against the cold. When suddenly the smell of brimstone and sulphur filled the air, and a dark figure started to walk towards the pair. This figure started to turn and turn around the circle, the clip-clopping of his hooves against the stone. Nellie grew silent. "It is him," she said. "It is the Diawl, the devil himself." John looked up, and the figure took off its cloak, revealing a horned head and a dragon's tail flipping back and forth with horse's hooves. He looked straight into the eyes of the devil himself. "So, John Gethin," said the Diawl, in a voice as old as the mountains and as capricious as the sea, "you have come to take my treasure. You will not last the night. None ever have. Come with me." His voice was like a serpent's, but as smooth as honey. "I can give you all that you desire. I know your wife, Siwan. She is known to me, and I can give her back. I can make all that you wanted whole again. Now come to me." The Diawl reached out with his hand. John Gethin at this point was utterly broken and stood upwards, the entrancing sing-song voice of the devil ringing through his ears. It was now that his spirit was broken, and he stepped forward, out of the circle, and reached out and took hold of the devil's hand. The devil grabbed him and went to pull him from the circle, but Nellie Pugh swiftly reached up and grabbed hold of John Gethin's other hand, and there atop the drim on this the darkest of nights, a tug of war happened between John Gethin, the Diawl, and Nellie Pugh. John Gethin stuck in the middle as Nellie and the Diawl pulled back and forth, almost tearing John Gethin into two. He was just about to fall out of the circle and become owned by the devil himself, when Nellie Pugh, summoning all her strength, said to the devil, "You can have him. I will let him go on one condition. I will let him go as long as you let him keep his soul, as long as this candle still burns." The Diawl looked at Nellie. "Very well. As long as the candle burns, as long as the candle is still there, John Gethin keeps his soul. But when that burns to nothing, he becomes mine forever. Do you understand?" "I understand," said Nellie Pugh. "I understand." And then the Diawl let go of John Gethin's hand, and John Gethin fell back into the circle. Nellie, being quick-witted and smart, as a witch that she was, immediately picked up the candle and whoo, blew it out. "Now you will never have him," she said to the Diawl. "Now you will never have him, for this candle will never burn out. This candle will always be here, and you are a fool, Diawl, a fool." The devil's rage knew no bounds. The mountains shook under his wrath. The heavens opened and the storms erupted. But Nellie and John Gethin, hand in hand, ran down the mountainside and back to the new inn, with a candle kept safe in his coat. John Gethin lived for many, many years. Although he dreamt of his wife Suan, although he dreamt of the treasures the Drim would hold, he never went back. He was buried many years later, with the candle still in his hand. John Gethin, the man who outwitted the Diawl on top of the Drim 200 years ago, this very night. And that, my friends, is the story of John Gethin and the candle. Diolch yn fawr, and thank you for listening, and thank you for stepping by here at the time between times. I'll see you next week for more stories. Please like, leave a nice comment, and subscribe if you can. It's lovely to have you. It's lovely to be with you. It's lovely for us to share together the joy of stories. Nos da. Good night.